Hello, everybody. We're in Orlando, Florida with David DeCurtis, and we're going to talk a little bit about his journey to the HondaJet and how HJOPA helped him get there. So, David, tell me a little bit about your journey in aviation, where it all started, what got you interested in flying?
It started in 2004. My wife purchased a 1-hour flight in a L-39. And I had never flown a plane before. And this is in Marathon Key. It was like a tourist thing. You can go up in a fighter jet or a trainer jet. And I did that 1-hour flight, absolutely fell in love with aviation. And 6 weeks later, I had my private. So I just jumped in, immersed myself in
6 weeks.
6 weeks.
Impressive.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Yeah.
After you got your private, what was next?
I flew for a couple of weeks, maybe a month, just VFR flying in a 172, and I ended up buying a SR-22 from Cirrus in Duluth. In fact, come to think of it, I hadn't even finished my private when I bought that, but I couldn't fly it. So I flew to Duluth, picked it up with my instructor, and then we flew back and parked it. And I had to finish in the 172. And then after about, 6 weeks of flying VFR in the 172, I started my instrument in the Cirrus. So I did all my instrument training. I did that in 8 weeks, got my instrument in the SR-22. And then I guess I flew for, I think it was about 100 hours with a mentor. And they finally, we were able to convince the insurance company I had enough training that I could go on my own.
And this was in the Cirrus?
This is in the Cirrus.
100 hours of mentorship in the Cirrus?
100 hours in Cirrus, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long did you fly the Cirrus for?
And you have to remember, too, this is 2005. The Cirrus wasn't considered the marvel of safety that it is today.
Right, right.
So the insurance companies were a little bit more nervous and had higher standards. So for somebody with literally weeks of background of aviation, getting insurance in a Cirrus SR-22, not an SR-20, high-powered aircraft, I had to put my work in to do it.
So the Cirrus, it didn't always have the safety reputation that it may have today.
Definitely not. Oh.
What changed during the time that you bought your Cirrus to now? How did Cirrus correct their safety record?
I would think the number one influence of that was actually COPA, the Owners Association. It really changed the culture, the way COPA grew and the community that COPA created, the training events that they put on. And then down the road, Cirrus, the company, got involved and really started working with COPA, putting fantastic training materials together and training programs, mentorship programs. It's all very well coordinated. And I think that has made the difference. It's still the same aircraft.
Right.
But the way it's operated is different now.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And how many years did you spend in the Cirrus before deciding to look to jets?
That was, let's see, I got my first jet in 2017, so it's 13 years.
What drew your attention to the HondaJet? Why not a CJ? Why not a Phenom? Okay,
the answer to your question, what drew my attention to the HondaJet, was Michael Gibson. let's be fair. Okay.
Of course.
I didn't know it existed. So I was looking at I was number 6 on the list to get a Cirrus Vision jet. And of course it was late, many years. And I had some concerns about the timeline, and I started looking at the Eclipse. And then the Eclipse, I had some concerns about the liquidity of the company. It had already gone bankrupt once. Thought it was a really fun jet to fly. It was a really cool little jet, underpowered in a couple of ways, but I really enjoyed flying the Eclipse. But I was concerned about the company. And unfortunately, that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy when everybody else is talking the same thing. Hey, this company might go out of business. It goes out of business.
Right.
But I didn't want to be the one fighting that current. So then I ended up looking at the Phenom 100. Got a factory tour, which was pretty in-depth. I actually got to climb into the airframes on the line, not something that Honda allows.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun. and had a contract in hand. I hadn't signed it yet, but I was ready to get the Phenom 100. And I get this call from a gentleman named Michael Gibson. It's like, hey, I heard you're in the market for a HondaJet. No idea how he knew, but he has his methods. He said, I'd love to come up to Orlando, give you a test flight. And I went for one test flight, and that was like just no comparison. Unbelievable difference. So that's what sold me. And it happened that serial number 76 was immediately available back in 2017. Somebody had backed out just prior to closing, so I got to walk right into the jet.
Oh, wow.
In Greensboro, take the full delivery experience, everything.
Yeah.
So it was great.
Yeah. Before you purchased the jet, had you come across the HondaJet Owners and Pilots Association?
During the purchase process, yes. And that was a big part of my decision. I actually reached out to Julian McQueen. He was the first HondaJet owner pilot to talk to me and sort of mentor me. And it was a neat story because I called him and he was on the ramp. He had no idea who I was. And he's, sounded busy reasonably until I announced myself as somebody interested in the HondaJet. And the guy sat down on his stairs of his HondaJet for 45 minutes on the ramp.
Wow.
Talking to me and answering all my questions. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
And he was my first mentor, really.
Wow.
In the HondaJet. And what a mentor to have. The guy flew around the world. Yes. In the HondaJet. So he just had all these wonderful insights, and that really helped solidify my decision. So yeah, HOPA was instrumental early on. There was, of course, my mentors. Edward Covington was early on. He was the one that helped me with the Eclipse market. Yes. That's why I met him. Tim Frazier, and the HOPA board. They were all helpful.
Yeah. How did Julian's influence? Julian was a big part of the board in the early days. Yeah. I believe Julian was one of the founding members. Yeah. How did the advice that Julian gave you influence your decision to purchase the jet?
Well, you got to understand, I was 13 years in a single engine prop.
Yeah.
So there's nerves there, right? And a whole world they didn't know about. Right. And he gave me, I would say in a word, he gave me comfort that, it can be done, do it the right way. The jet is, he gave me comfort about the jet, about the company backing up the jet. What amazing aircraft it was, and his experience and how it, really opened doors for him and from an experience perspective, both in business and personally. So yes. It was comforting. Yeah. Gave me confidence to move forward.
How did your training process look? Did you go to flight safety right away?
Absolutely not. I went, I bought the aircraft, took delivery with, I got really the best mentor possible at the time, which was Tim Frazier. Yes. He was Fujino's pilot. And for anybody watching who doesn't know Fujino, is president, the original president, CEO of Honda Aircraft. And so Tim was flying the HondaJet 5 years before anybody else in the world was flying the HondaJet. So at the time, he was either the most or one of the most experienced HondaJet pilots in the world. Wow. Still is, I'm sure. And I hired him. Honda assigned him to me, so because all the other contract pilots were busy. So I got Tim, and I flew 100 hours with Tim, and we knocked that out in I think 2 or 3 months. I flew all over the place before I went to flight safety. So I started off being, completely out of my league, totally lost, sitting in the right seat, watching, learning, to, at the end of the 100 hours, Tim saying, dude, you're completely ready for this type rating. Go for it. You're going to do great. Yes. And so then I went to flight safety. I honestly breezed through the type rating, and I was in the class with several other vastly more experienced pilots than me. One of them 40,000 hours. Wow. And we all became, it's 3 weeks together. It became kind of a bit of a tight-knit group. But the thing that was extraordinary for me is even though I was by far the least experienced pilot in the room, I was the one tutoring these airline guys on the Garmin.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they're all Honeywell.
Right.
So yeah, they know aviation, but they don't know single pilot and they don't know Garmin. So I was tutoring them. Of course, they were tutoring me in aviation wisdom and knowledge. And it was a fantastic symbiotic relationship. And I just love listening to the stories and the wisdom from these guys.
Yes.
But what really, and this might be one of your future questions, what really changed things for me is one of those guys in that room went off the runway.
Wow.
And I got involved. So,
do you think that your mentorship experience, say even prior to flight safety, do you think that has contributed to you being one of the fortunate ones that has not gone off the runway? How much did that mentorship experience shape you as a safe pilot?
I mean, damn near 100%. Because I had no idea what I was doing. So, like how else?
Right.
Like I went from totally unprepared, other than being a licensed pilot, instrument rating, multi-commercial.
Yeah.
So I had some credentials, but they were all in props.
Yes.
And all flying under 200 knots, all under the flight levels. You know, no experience of that, no experience of jet at all. I had no idea what I was doing. So
Right.
I didn't also understand the difference in the physics between the aerodynamics of single engine prop versus a jet.
Right.
And I felt very well prepared in my initial mentoring, but even after I got my type rating, I of course still continued mentorship after that. And that's when I switched from Tim Frazier and I asked Edward to take over my mentorship. And it was a completely different experience with him, but also just as valuable.
Yes.
But from, you know, each time you're with a different instructor, you get a different angle.
Right, right.
And Edward imparted a tremendous amount of wisdom. And I think with a focus on aeronautical decision making, he's extraordinarily sharp. And he also taught me, I would say, sort of frame of mind too, like how to stay focused. Edward is very much about being focused on the task and getting rid of the noise.
Yes.
And that was, I thought that was great, you know, learning that. But I still, you know, I had 150 hours of mentorship before I went out on my own, where the insurance companies, really Edward fired me is what it comes down to. He was like, dude, enough. Like,
so the 150 hours, that was above what the insurance company asked for. Why?
Yeah, the insurance company wanted a minimum of, I think it was, you know, the law was 25, and I think the insurance company wanted 50. I had 150 because, you know, the insurance company doesn't set my personal minimums.
Right.
Right. I have to be comfortable to fly my family in the jet. It's not, hey, when can I achieve the minimum bar?
Right.
Okay, I'm good to go. It's when do I feel like I'm, not just me, but I feel proficient and confident, but my mentors are telling me you're ready. Then I'm okay. Like the insurance company is far removed from my actual capabilities. For me, I'm a piece of paper.
Right.
To an insurance company.
Yeah.
But to my mentors, they know me, they understand me, they see how I'm making decisions, they see how I'm flying the airplane, if I'm staying in front of the airplane, and all the other factors about being a good aviator. And when they tell me I'm good to go, then, you know, that helps a lot. Yes. Of course, where I was then and where I am now are different, because it's a never-ending journey.
Yes.
Of improvement. You know, if you want, to maximize your aviation experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Has the relationships that you've built through the HJOPA community, how has that changed who you are as a pilot? Those relationships that have helped us grow. Yeah,
it's HJOPA has been great in that. I think that's, if I had to pin one thing down, the connections you get from the HondaJet community, the tips, the wisdom, the insights, that's probably the most valuable thing that I personally have extracted from HJOPA is those relationships and the access, because one of the awesome things about the community is you don't have to know somebody for them to help.
Yes.
You just have to ask.
Yes.
And they just will jump in and, you know, both feet and help, and especially if it's something that, you know, one member has experience with, knowledge. They're very generous with that. It's like helping you is helping them. Yeah, that's the attitude I find with the owners and the pilots in the community. Very tight knit. Yeah. Very tight knit group of people. So here we are, about 8 years later from the time that you purchased your first HondaJet. Yeah. You recently became our safety chair. Yes. So
what has it been over the past 8 years that developed and drives that passion to improve safety within the HondaJet community? What influenced that?
Yeah, it was going back to that earlier story I told you.
Yeah.
So here I am, a relatively new HondaJet pilot. I'm out flying on my own. I'm pretty sure it was 2018. And a dear friend of mine who I became friends with, in the type rating, who has, orders of magnitude more life aviation experience than me in multiple aircrafts, flying commercial, flying military, goes off the runway in a HondaJet. And I spoke with him. He reached out. I talked with him. I listened. I sort of interviewed because I wanted to learn as much as I possibly can. But the message that I got was, wow, if he can go off the runway, then I really need to understand and be proficient, understand the correct technique to land this aircraft. And I wanted to understand if there was an issue with the aircraft, because I didn't know there wasn't at that time. And so that started a journey for me. And since then,
at what point, how long had you been flying the HondaJet yourself when you learned of your friend that went off the runway?
I mean, it was less than a year.
Less than a year?
Yeah.
Okay. So you've been flying the HondaJet for a year, but that was kind of a wake-up call for you. Maybe I should look into this and understand, maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah, and it wasn't that I was having problems landing the aircraft. I was taught how to land the aircraft correctly. I just didn't know why I was landing the aircraft the way I was, and why I was getting into arguments with other people telling me that you're supposed to land it a different way. But, and I would revert back to my training, both from FlightSafety, from Edward, and from Tim, that taught me how to land it correctly. But I really wanted to know why the technique is the way that it is, and conversely, why are some pilots going off the runway? Because I'm not feeling it. Right. I don't feel uncomfortable in the HondaJet. I never did. I mean, other than my first time I ever landed it. That, probably doing everything wrong, even with the guidance I had beside me. But since after I got trained properly, and I even in that 1 year, I'd been in multiple various weather conditions, some of them adverse, and I felt 100% confident. But that confidence was troubling to me because, again, there's this sort of disconnect. Yeah. This guy who's 40,000-hour pilot and me, right. Why am I so confident, and why did he stop flying planes? Because he decided to never fly planes again after that. Yeah. That really shook me. So I wanted to understand why, the what, the how, everything about the landing technique, because that seemed to be the only issue with the aircraft experience. Yeah. I won't even say it's with the aircraft, but the experience people were having with the aircraft. So I dug into it, and then over the years, other people started going off the runway as well, and I interviewed as many as I could personally. I studied the data, and then I started breaking it down from a aerodynamic and physics perspective. One of the things that was really nice is that Honda lent me the time of the Honda test pilots, like Stefan, and they were quite generous with their time working with me, because by that time I had enough insight, had enough research, had enough data where the HJOPA had invited me to be a speaker at one of the conventions, and I wanted to make sure that anything I was saying on stage, Honda was completely in line with and was congruent with the AFM. So Honda gave me access to the team, to the test pilots, and I was able to validate everything I had learned, everything, all the theories that I had formed, concepts, everything that I was putting into that presentation, and nothing got corrected, only really cool additional knowledge got imparted to me, which made its way into the presentation. And that's, I kind of went from there. So,
one of the things that we did at the HondaJet Owners and Pilots Association, once the Runway Excursions, we determined that this was an issue that we wanted to address. We reached out to the Citation Jet Pilots Association, CJP, and they were a wealth of knowledge to us, and they shared resources such as Charlie Precourt with us who developed the Safe to Land program that they adopted, and as a part of their Safe to Land program, they had worked with CloudAhoy, which is now owned by ForeFlight, and they developed a program that scored the pilots on their approach and landing performance, that they would get a debrief scorecard after each flight. And because it had had such a huge impact on the safety of Citation jet pilots, because they had had a similar situation that we had, that they had had a lot of excursions. And we decided that that was the low-hanging fruit, that that was a program that we could develop, that we could have an impact on the safety of the HondaJet pilots by potentially implementing this program. And you were one of the very first who said, sign me up. I want to be a part of this beta program. I want to work on this problem. How has receiving a post-flight debrief email that is scored impacted how you fly?
Yeah, it had an impact in a number of ways. One, the fact that it's completely seamless. You land and it arrives in your email. You have all this data. You get a summary, the scorecard, and if you want to dig in, you just click. So the ease and the automation of it makes it readily available. And you know, I'm busy. I've got other things to do. The fact that it comes so seamlessly makes it easy to use. So that's the first hurdle. The next is when I got these scorecards, and sometimes, you know, you'd see a bunch of green and then yellow or red score, meaning, you know, not so good. Some of them I would understand, oh yes, I remember doing that, you know, I'll watch that next time. But some of them I had no clue what was going on. And I'd dig into the debrief and relive the flight or that portion of the flight in 3D. And it's really interesting, the things that get by you, because the cockpit's not yelling at you, right? The cockpit will yell at you in way extremes of the safety envelope, like speed and, you know, overspeed, underspeed. There's only a few places, configuration, that it's yelling at you. But you're single pilot, you're out there on your own and you're doing something, maybe you're a little low, maybe you're a little slow, it's not gonna say anything. And if you gradually correct that without even realizing it, and you just don't know it happened.
Right.
And I have a particular flight in mind, right? Craig Airport. Which is, there's towers everywhere. And I'm doing a circle to land, which I shouldn't have been doing. I was silly, but that's what the tower gave me. And I didn't protest because it was a beautiful day. It was not a big deal. Not a beautiful day, but it was pretty high ceilings. And I did it, but the debrief was shocking and insightful. So that's helped a tremendous amount. It's also changed my behavior because I want to get a good score. So I don't, you know, there's a lot of things I don't do anymore. Like I go to Provo a lot, and they have a 9,000-foot runway, and the FBO's on the other end. Right. I don't ask to land long anymore because it'll mess up my score.
Right. Yeah.
And what that does, though, I mean, it's funny because pilots are just that type of personality. We want our numbers to be good, but it's also improved me as a pilot because now I'm always using the correct technique, the correct stable approach, and the correct landing technique, no matter what, even on beautiful sunny days. So my muscle memory is there, right? If you're using different techniques, flying in fair weather a lot, then all of a sudden you're in rough conditions and you don't have that muscle memory, you're going to be more agitated, more nervous, less smooth. Where for me right now, I feel very comfortable, you know, pretty much whatever the day has in store for me, because I do it the same every single time. And that debrief program has helped with that a lot. It keeps you sharp. I mean, it's just somebody every flight saying, just, you know, instead of it gradually, you know, you get complacent. It keeps that complacency tight.
So the score, so receiving a score after each flight is almost like automated accountability.
It's like having a partner. You know, it's not crew, but it's similar. Somebody watching over you and giving you feedback. You're out there flying by yourself and you never get any feedback. That's not a good thing.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the Proficient Pilot Program that you're putting together. What are some of its goals?
So the main goal, the heart of this program, is to get every pilot on the planet to land the way the aircraft has been designed to be landed, to use the correct technique to land this aircraft. And unfortunately, that is not the case today. There are so many pilots out there that have experience on their jets, whether they're coming from 737s or from SR-22s and everything in between, that have a wealth of knowledge. And they bring that knowledge and they add it to the AFM. And that is not a good thing. The HondaJet has a brilliant aerodynamic design, and it gives us a tremendous amount of advantages. It cuts through turbulence like butter. It goes faster, it's more efficient, and it's quieter. The trade-off is you need a little bit more distance on the runways. And that was, I think, for me, an extraordinarily valuable trade-off that I don't go to 3,000-foot runways a lot. You know, the places I fly to have, you know, decent-sized runway. So that was an easy trade-off for me. But that aerodynamic design requires a particular landing technique. Particular, not difficult, not a handful, not squirrely, it's particular. And if you land the aircraft per the technique, it's an absolute dream. And it's unbelievably confident and unbelievably stable. So that's the core of the pilot proficiency program, is stable approach, proper landing.
And how does PPP, how does it contribute to helping pilots fly according to the AFM? What are the elements of the Proficient Pilot Program that helps pilots do that?
So we have right now, and it's going to grow, right? But right now we have a video series coming out to detail the landing technique. We have the Proficient Pilot Program software centered around CloudAhoy, AirSync, ForeFlight, all working together, along with, and you get Jeppesen data, you get all this nice stuff discounted into a really nice bundle.
Let's talk about that for a moment. Let's talk about when you sign up for this program with ForeFlight, how ForeFlight offers a bundled discount when you sign up for the CloudAhoy debrief program.
So when the website releases, which I've seen the website, it looks really good. It's not ready yet to be released, but it will be ready very shortly. You go to the website and you'll see all the products that ForeFlight is offering as a single bundled package. And we all have all the same products. The only thing that's new for some of us is AirSync. Not everybody has AirSync, but it's a wonderful tool. And then, of course, CloudAhoy. And a lot of people already have CloudAhoy. And this is CloudAhoy, I don't know if it's called Pro or whatever, but it's above and beyond the standard CloudAhoy because of the way it does flight data analysis automatically for you, not just for you, but for the fleet. Right? Anonymously, we get this anonymous aggregated data that we can watch trends at the fleet. So at the fleet level, so they put all this together and they're offering a discount with it, and it really, in a sense, pays for itself because you're getting a nice discount that covers, you know, the additional things. That's the way I view it, anyways. Is that it's completely worth it. To get that sort of insight.
It's the ForeFlight Performance Plus subscription that almost every HondaJet pilot already has.
Right.
The runway analysis, we'll come back to that in a moment. The CloudAhoy debrief. Your Jeppesen databases for the Americas, and then their premium support package where you have like a dedicated support staff that will help you not only get it set up, but will help you learn how to use all of the tools.
Correct.
Let's talk for a moment about runway analysis in ForeFlight. What do you think the potential impact to safety could be with pilots adopting using runway analysis at home in the planning process before they ever get in the aircraft?
I mean, it's critical to me. Now, obviously, if you're going to airports that you're going to in weather conditions you're comfortable with, you know, I don't check runway analysis at Orlando Executive. It's my home base. I know what the numbers are. But when you're going somewhere unfamiliar, different altitude, different temperature, different weights, different slopes, all the different factors, grooved, not grooved, this software takes all of it into account. So I think that, especially as it relates to the load you're taking, how many people, and the weight, the time of year, these are a lot of factors that you could have been to an airport before in the winter and worked out great, and you're going back in the summer and you don't realize it's not going to work out so great. Especially that the landing numbers are easier than the takeoff numbers, so you can get in and then you can't get out. So, right? So I think it's a fantastic tool. The other thing about it, the way ForeFlight's designed it, is I always refresh in the cockpit, in flight.
Yes.
Just you can manually type in, my aircraft has Wi-Fi, but even if you don't have Wi-Fi, you can manually type in the current weather, the current runway conditions, and it will re-up the data real time. So you can make real-time decisions, and you can do it well in advance of arriving at the airport because you get the weather.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that even though we all should do this, very few pilots are going to pull out the AFM, go through page by page. We all remember that exercise that Flight Safety has us go through. What do we spend 45 minutes to an hour going through this performance exercise? Very few pilots are going to take the time to do that. So what ends up happening is pilots jump in the cockpit and they rely on the onboard avionics to do the performance planning for them. And many times they're 30 minutes away from landing at an airport, finding out, hey, the runway's wet, wind conditions, etc. The ability to be able to do that on your couch at home the night before a flight, invaluable, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful. How's the progress going on PPP? When do we expect it to be released?
Weeks. We're ready. This site's up. It's actually procedural issues right now with invoicing and stuff like that on the ForeFlight side. We're ready on our side, and can't wait. And I'm encouraged that Honda has expressed an interest in helping us get the word out about the HJOPA P3, I like to call it.
Yeah.
And I think that'll be great. And also ForeFlight is also going to market it. So I think that'll be powerful. Yeah. It's incredibly important that every single pilot who is operating a HondaJet gets the message about the correct landing technique. And I know for some pilots that could be even offensive. But it is what it is. If you're not landing the HondaJet the way the AFM tells you to land the HondaJet, you're a test pilot. And I get people saying, "Oh, well, you have to add half the gust of VREF for safety, a margin of safety." And you're not adding a margin of safety. You're adding a margin of danger. Is what you're doing. You're adding a tremendous amount of kinetic energy to the mass of the aircraft that needs to be bleeded out by the brakes, converted into heat. It's not designed to do. And there are no numbers to reflect that.
Yes.
You have no idea what the runway numbers are for two reasons. One, you're not going to touch down at the 1,000-foot markers if you're coming in fast. So you're already short runway, and you're going to drift and brake a lot longer. And there's, like I said, there's just no data to back it up. And that's all fine on fair weather days and 9,000-foot runways. But when you get a pilot that is faced with adverse conditions, weather-wise, maybe a little heavy, maybe is not proficient in the technique, and then they have to think about it. Okay, what are all the steps you got to do, or what is my technique? That's even worse. They're not even trying to land the jet according to the technique. They're just, well, I land in a crosswind like this. This is what I do. I've done it for years in a Pilatus, or I've done it for years in a 737 that has full wing spoilers, that has reversers, that has auto brakes, has all these things that the HondaJet does not have, and swept wings, by the way. So all of these things change the aerodynamics and the principles and the technique. So I just wish that the pilots would add an ounce of humility to their decision making and say, okay, maybe the engineers at Honda know what they're talking about. And if they do that, everybody's going to be better off. That's really what our program is about.
Yeah. So there's a person out here watching this video who is thinking about buying a HondaJet. What advice would you give to the potential buyer that's thinking about whether a HondaJet's right for them?
Well, I mean, it obviously depends on their situation. I'd like to hear, I'd like to listen. I do this a lot, right? I get a lot of phone calls about HondaJets.
Yes.
First thing I do is listen. I want to hear their situation. I want to hear their mission. I want to hear their payload, their experience. Are they planning on sitting in the back? Are they sitting up front? Are they going to sit right? Are they going to sit left? So I take all those things into consideration, and then I'll kick back whether I think the HondaJet is a nice fit for them. And in almost all cases, it is. It's a fantastic aircraft that meets a very wide range of missions. So, but in general, I would say my advice, especially, well, really to both owners and pilot owners, is take it on, but do it properly. Right? Follow the correct steps. Don't cut corners. Don't look for what's the bare minimum I can get away with. Do it properly, and you'll love it.
So, say this is the owner of the jet who's decided, okay, I'm going to buy this jet, and say he's even that he's going to fly this jet himself, or he's going to hire a pilot to fly it. What advice would you give to the pilot entering the HondaJet?
Join the HondaJet, the HJOPA Pilot Proficiency Program, step one. Okay, and I mean that because even if they're an extraordinarily experienced pilot who's 100% proficient in the HondaJet landing technique, then we need their contribution into the program, because the program isn't just about the software, it's not just about the technique, it's not just about the videos, it's about the community, right?
Yes.
And so we want everybody to be part of that program. The next piece would be to understand that your background as an aviator doesn't necessarily translate into being a great single pilot HondaJet pilot. And again, I'll come back to humility. You have to have the humility to understand there are differences with this aircraft, and you need to learn them, and you need to respect them. So if you're a 20,000-hour airline pilot, that doesn't necessarily mean you're prepared to fly a HondaJet by yourself. You've spent decades flying commercial aircraft with somebody helping you with completely different capabilities. And you've never run a checklist and flown an airplane at the same time and worked the radios. There's all kinds of things. That doesn't mean that airline pilots are bad HondaJet pilots. It's just saying that being an airline pilot does not de facto make you a good HondaJet pilot, a safe HondaJet pilot. You have to like bring all that wonderful aviation knowledge. Right? That's very difficult to replace decades of that experience. Okay.
Absolutely.
That gives you a world ahead of other pilots that have less experience than you. But also have the humility to understand you're using software that's completely foreign to you. You're flying an advanced single pilot aircraft that has a particular technique for landing especially, and just have the humility to dig in and learn that. That would be my advice, and reach out to the community and accept mentorship and accept the help. Ask for help and you'll get it.
Yes. Yeah, we would definitely encourage anybody in the community who's come across the HondaJet Owners and Pilots Association to, in that discovery phase, sign up for a 90-day trial. It's not going to cost you anything. Introduce yourself to the community, because the community is remarkably generous with their knowledge of the jet. I'm sure everybody be happy to help. Well, David, this has been great. Very happy to have you on board with HJOPA, leading our safety program. Definitely looking forward to the Pilot Proficient program that is launching soon. And look forward to seeing where it goes.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Take care.